Good morning, Carrie and Raven. And good morning, everyone else. We are just sitting down to talk a little bit about our We Happy Few rehearsal structure and internal structures and the things that we think we're doing really, really well. So Raven, Carrie, who would like to start?
I just love the way you phrased that. It sounds like a very humble brag, but I think coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I do use the term coming out of it very loosely. We are in a spot where Dr. Fauci has said the pandemic is over, but we all still know it is quite present in our lives. Um, this is our first show back as a live theater company, our first full production, Desdemona, a play about a handkerchief. It's going up in the end of May. And I think it was really important to us that we don't continue to do theater the same way we were, right? We were one of the many theaters that got shut down mid-March in 2020. Gosh, how much time has passed in 2020? Um, and a realization that if we went back to doing things exactly the same way, that we could potentially have that happen again. Like there was no safety net holding us up.
Well, this was really important. And when we were talking about doing a show, uh, we were all just very concerned about making sure that everybody felt safe. I have I had a baby during the pandemic, and she's almost 2 now, but she's still not eligible for a vaccine. And so, that has been top of mind. My husband and I have not been, out and about and, doing a lot of things, even since we've gotten vaccinated and boosted and everything like that. Um, our kid has still never seen the inside of a grocery store. She thinks that groceries just show up. um, so, I wanted to make sure that we were as safe as absolutely possible. And so when Carrie and I were talking about this, we were talking about, sort of what equity is asking of theaters, even though we're not an equity theater. Like that was a good a good model and a good, just source of information of like, okay, how can we do this safely? So, we have we're doing regular testing. People that are not acting on stage are masked during rehearsals. We're also limiting the amount of people in the rehearsal room. So things like our production meetings have been virtual, and we've had designers Zoom in to rehearsal and watch rehearsal like that. So some of that has been, I think, really nice and really crucial. Just to make sure that everybody is feeling safe. If anybody is like, oh, I don't know, I'm a little scratchy today, or, somebody left work early and they were coughing, so I'm going to keep my mask on today. That's been great. We've been very up and up. And I think that, one of the things that's actually really helpful, and that we were very specific when we chose the show, is that it's a 3-person show. And so the 3 of us that are in the show can really check in and be super open and honest and, and vulnerable with each other about how we're doing.
One of the things that was really important too in helping us feel safe, but also helping to, I don't know, support what we're trying to put out as a new mentality, which is the show doesn't have to go on mentality, is we have set up our rehearsals so that they're running over a much longer period of time. We're rehearsing only a couple times a week, like 2 or 3 times a week until we get up to tech, so that if someone does get sick, we can cancel rehearsal until they get a negative test, right? And then we're not scrambling and panicking because we have all this lost rehearsal time. We actually had a big outbreak of of a cold, not COVID, thank goodness, but like a cold that went around the cast about a week ago, and we canceled a week of rehearsals, and we only lost 2 rehearsals. And there is still, with any lost time, this feeling of like, okay, I just want to make sure we're still on track, but we didn't sweat it. It was really easy to be able to say like, okay, we're all testing negative so far, but we want to make sure that that's still what's happening and that we're still feeling safe with this. So we don't have to meet. We can say maybe not, and we'll still be okay. We've
Yeah.
built a bunch of extra time into the actual show schedule too. Normally we do 16 shows. We run Wednesday through Saturday, and there's just not a lot of extra room in that for an extension, for canceled performances, for anything. Theater Washington and Helen Hayes has been really generous with the amount of performances that they require for Helen Hayes eligibility. Normally it's 16 shows, but they bumped it down to 10. So we've been able to do is we've scheduled 12 shows, and we've asked the actors once a week to hold 1 extra day. So if we need to cancel a week of performances because of an outbreak, then we'll just throw a couple of extra performances on near the end. And our whole acting staff has been really generous in being like, that's not an unreasonable ask. We can do that. We can make that happen. And what we're hoping is that that'll create a situation too where no one feels like they need to power through a show when they're not feeling well, that they actually have the ownership to say, I don't know that this is a good idea for me now, and that we'll be able to back them up without any consequence to the show at all, which is kind of a nice idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this long burn rehearsal process that we have built Desdemona around, and we're sort of looking at that for our shows in the future, that also has really come in handy for you specifically, Carrie, because you have something very important happening in your life prior to the show opening, but not prior to rehearsals being over.
Yeah, this is I'm not gonna lie, the idea of setting up a show that was very conducive to if someone got sick has been very conducive to both Raven and myself. I am 8 months pregnant, and I'm actually scheduled to, my due date is before the show opens, which sounds madness. I'm the director. Thank goodness I'm not an actor in it, right? That would be impossible. But the idea is, as we were planning this in advance, like no one could know in what physical shape I'd be at this time, whether I'd be able to go to rehearsals or feeling well enough to do anything. So there was a bit of a gamble there. But one of the things that helped was that we were only rehearsing a couple times a week. So that's actually been a really leisurely schedule for myself to be like, yeah, 2 or 3 nights a week for a couple of hours, no big deal. We're not doing long Saturdays or all day Sundays. So I've been wonderfully not tired out, which is great. And it is possible that I have a baby before this show goes up. And it is amazing to me the power of artistic collaboration. No one in the company has been concerned about that.
Mm-mm. Well, and Carrie, just to from my perspective on this, put this in, you said, you just put in, oh, it was a bit of a gamble because we didn't know what kind of physical shape I'd be in. And I'm like, well, yes and no. I mean, we also thought about this, right? Like we knew full well that you were going to have a baby, possibly before likely before the show actually opens. And so, when we were talking about doing this and making this happen, it was also like, okay, so we need an assistant director or co-director that is enrolled in taking over the show and picking it up wherever, I mean, goodness gracious, like here we are, we're just a couple of weeks now to opening and your due date here. And it's like, you're still in it. And,